Now, I normally don't sit down, but we're going to be sitting here and run around.
Really, when you don't do Zoom, you walk around?
Well, the majority of my things are, live, interactive, Somebody's got a cat on there. Funny.
Hey.
Einbinder, Einbinder.
All right, so it's 10:30 right now. We can start off. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself to whoever is on call?
Sure, absolutely. So, thanks for everyone being on here today. Again, my name is Scott Einbinder. I'm currently, my title, as I refer to myself, is I don't really like to see myself as a trainer. I see myself more as kind of a motivational sales strategist. I've been doing this now. I'm going on my 17th year actually doing this. Prior to doing this, I was in the real estate space in a pretty significant way. I'm not one of these guys that, was a teacher that never did it. I spent my first 30 years in the field. I don't want to bore you with my track record, but I was broker owner. We had a very significant company of about 1,500 agents and sold that to Merrill Lynch. I went into the banking business, sold that to Chase Manhattan Bank. So I've had a lot of good fortune in the business as an agent, as a manager, as a broker, as an owner. And for the past 16, 17 years, I've been sharing perspectives that worked for me out in the marketplace. Not only does it work for me, but it works for my clients. Today, I work with many of the top brokers and individual agents in the country. Generally, my clients are the top 15% of the industry who really innovate, do things differently, and they're always looking to kind of adapt and transition into new things. As you know, real estate agents, the real estate business, is a very slow business for change, right? There's not a lot of creativity and not a lot of ingenuity in our business. Things are very slow to change. One of the things that I've always kind of prided myself on when I was actively in the business and now in my career that I've been doing for the past number of years has been to recognize that the real success is in those who can adapt and change and be on the cutting edge. The group that's growing at a much faster rate in terms of evolution than in the industry are the consumers. Clients are evolving very quickly. Buyers and sellers are becoming much more knowledgeable than ever before, have more tools, more resources, more access, more transparency than ever before. So the value proposition that we have as real estate agents has to change. If you're doing the same thing you were doing back in 2019, quite frankly, or 2018, quite frankly, you're probably already extinct. So it's really about, working in a very, very progressive mindset. Now, the kind of the topic of this conversation today is, managing and navigating buyers through a bidding war, which I'm sure all of you are feeling the pain of. The one differentiator in one of the things I've been giving guidance on over these last years is, navigating through this pandemic. While those of us that have been in the business for many, many years, decades, quite frankly, we've seen markets compress, we've seen markets slow down, we've seen changes in markets, but none of us, I think, are old enough to really know how to navigate or knew what to expect with a pandemic, right? We've never seen a pandemic infusion into a financial market before. So some of the reactions to this market were very different. I mean, back in March, just a year ago, many people, in fact, many very smart people on CNBC and Bloomberg were predicting that real estate values were going to decline somewhere between 30 to 50%. That was the expectation, advice, and guidance from very smart economists who were telling us on TV what we can expect in March. Lo and behold, the exact opposite happened, right? So what happened is we saw a total shift and change in how things evolved with real estate. Good for us, of course. That being the case, many agents have suffered through this pandemic. Sure, some of them have, enjoyed the benefits. Obviously, my whole kind of business is focusing on the business from a listing perspective. Listings are critical. It's all about the listing. You gotta get listings. It's always been the case, but it's never been more important. keeping in mind that buyers are becoming very comfortable going directly to listing agents now. So, that's a topic for another day. And we've kind of talked about that in our last session. But today I want to talk about the buyer side, because one of the most incredible levels of frustration are being felt by agents on the buy side who have buyers ready, willing, and able to go. And you're finding that your offer is one of 15 to 20 offers sitting around the table, and how am I going to get my deal accepted? Now, while we have to be very, very sympathetic to buyers who are losing opportunities, right? Let's take a moment to be a little bit sympathetic for ourselves, right? Because you're spending time, effort, energy on working with things and getting nothing at the end of the day. That's a very, very frustrating. And I say working with buyers that aren't able to perform or can't perform, it's a very expensive business decision in the real estate business. So what I wanted to do is share with you some of the guidance that I've been giving my clients who represent buyers in these bidding wars. And these things have been successful. Everything I'm going to share with you, it's not a theory. It's not an idea. It's not, hey, let's give it a shot and see if it works. These things I'm going to share with you work. Now, not everything might work for your individual transaction, but it's like anything else. We have to be creative in these times. We have to use innovation, ingenuity, creativity to help your deal win amongst other offers that are being presented on listings. So I wanted to kind of give you some perspective. So first things first, there's a process that real estate agents do before we work with buyers. It's called making sure the buyers are pre-qualified. We've heard these words for 50 years, making sure and what does that really mean? It's really making sure that your buyer is mortgage approvable, right? Making sure that they've been vetted by a lender, and if you're a realtor, you're getting your pre-approval letter, sent to you, and you're using that as your ammunition or as your litmus test that's going to be enough for a seller or a listing agent to feel confident enough in your offer. I'm going to tell you that that's not enough. You must do not work with any buyer before you have not a pre-qualification conversation, but I call it a buyer expectation meeting. And use those words. This is very important that when you sit with a buyer, when you meet with a buyer for the first time, it's so critical to lay out what I call the expectations, what your expectation is of them, what they can expect from the process, what they need to understand in a pandemic with limited inventory on how their transaction's going to get accepted. So first things first, expectation of pre-approval. You've got to remove the words pre-approval from your vernacular. Please don't ever use them again. In fact, when you use the word or say the word pre-approval, it only means that you're coming from an antiquated place in time. The new and the progressive vernacular for buyer assessment is ensuring that they are LP or DU or non-QM vetted. You must use those words. What do they mean? LP stands for loan prospector, DU stands for desktop underwriter, non-QM stands for non-qualified mortgages. It is very, very important that buyers do not just provide their income documentation, their asset documentation, and allow the lender to run a credit report. What they must do is they must ask the lender to run them through the AUS, the automated underwriting system, to provide you with a written, validated documentation of the ability not only to perform and get a mortgage commitment, but the ability to perform and get to the closing table. You see, loans can't close unless they have been successfully vetted through the LP or DU system. So what you do is you take this information, you take this knowledge, and when you are starting to prepare your buyer to make an offer, and you're going to prepare what I call your presentation to the listing agent and or seller, you've got to use the words, my buyers are not just pre-approved. My buyers have been LP or DU vetted, which means they meet the highest level of authentication to not only be in a position to get a commitment, but to be in a position to close on your home. This is critical because every pre-approval letter all has the exact same exception. It says this pre-approval letter is not to be considered a commitment for a loan, and the buyer or seller should not rely upon this on a commitment, which basically means the letter isn't really worth a whole lot. So it's important. But going into the financing side of the question, because this is generally a time where we as real estate agents, we stay away from it. We kind of delegate the financial conversation to loan officers, which I think is a mistake. You've got to take a little bit more ownership of the direction of setting with buyers their expectation financially in a pandemic with limited inventory. So in this conversation of expectation, there's something that you need to talk to buyers about, and it's called ignore list price. Buyers must ignore list price. List price is just a guideline today. It doesn't reflect value. It doesn't reflect anything other than just a general guideline of where sellers want to start the process. So what you need to do in this financial expectation meeting that is critical to have with buyers, and I'm talking about before you show them one home, is you need to probe with them what their financial flexibility is. And what that means is you need not tell them about what this means, you need to show them. And what you need to show them that today, as of the current interest rate market, as of today, every $10,000 increment in price equals, in this market, a $44 a month increase to their monthly payment. So what you do during this conversation of expectation, this conversation of financial flexibility, you need to sit with a buyer and say, I want you to know in this market, if we go into a property, are you prepared in increments of $10,000? Are you prepared? And do you have the financial wherewithal to go up $44 a month? That's $10,000. $88 a month, $20,000. Keep rising up to a level and find out what their maximum threshold is, because pre-qualification letters generally share what a buyer wants to be at. It doesn't necessarily share what they can be at. And if we learn that their maximum level of affordability or qualification is at a level, we need to find out upfront, before you take them in your car, meet them at the property and start engaging, that they must be in a position today to be able to have that ability to have flexible. If not, if a buyer says to you, listen, here's the thing, I want you to show me a home, and if I see a house on the market for 310, I want to start at 250, I want to start at 280. That thinking process pre-pandemic may have applied. In this environment, it just doesn't apply. So it's really, really important to get engagement with buyers in terms of what that really means to them, what it means to them. In addition to that, when it comes to the financial side of strategic offers, recognizing that mortgage contingencies, listen, if you have a cash buyer, that's great. Everybody loves a cash buyer, loves a cash buyer. Well, cash buyers, generally, do you think they're paying more or they want to pay less? Cash buyers. Less. Listing agents generally like cash buyers because there's no mortgage contingency, there's no potential appraisal problem. And so it's important to understand that listing agents have a general attraction to cash buyers. The problem is that cash buyers generally mean a lower net dollar to a seller. But if we can remove the fear, remove the obstacles associated with the financing decision, maybe our offer can beat a cash offer. Maybe, and I'm going to tell you it has. So for example, when it comes to the mortgage pre-approval concept, by inserting or sharing with a listing agent that the buyer has been LP or DU vetted with no conditions, that is as close to a commitment as you can get. So that kind of removes the doubt, will they get rejected for the loan? However, what about the financing? What about the appraisal? That's always the concern. Listing agents like cash deals because there's no concern about the what? About the appraisal. But what if we can be creative? Now, we don't have to remove the contingency to deal with the appraisal issue, but what we can is we can be creative with the appraisal. What we can say is that we are willing to allow the appraisal, should the appraisal fall below the accepted price, that the buyer is willing to, and we can provide verification if that's the case, that the buyer has the financial resources to cover the difference between the appraised value and the purchase price, which means during this conversation of expectation, you need to educate buyers that this is a reality, that appraisals are in some cases are not keeping up with market values, right? The appraisals are not keeping up with this in these hot markets, but it doesn't mean that you can't be creative. And so when buyers are sitting there learning this from you, getting direction and advice, and we're thinking strategically before we move forward, ask the buyer, tell me about your cash availability. And if that cash availability isn't within your own pocketbook, maybe you need to access a gift. Maybe if there's a gift resource that's available to you, most mortgage loans will allow there to be a gift. So you might be able to negotiate a purchase price. You've eliminated the contingency. You've not eliminated the appraisal contingency, but you've adjusted for it. So in the event of another appraisal, we've provided in our offer that the buyer has the cash, the buyer has accepted it, you have full transparency going forward. I can tell you many of my clients' deals have won in bidding wars simply because we've presented a much different financial level of security to a seller. So the seller, at the end of the day, all the seller cares about is what? Netting the most what? Money, right? And we want to make sure that we provide this clarity, because the chances that a listing agent is going to be able to do it, that's sometimes the barrier against us. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But the idea is that we have to give this perspective to buyers, and buyers in this market are very open to do it. Now, should a buyer not be in a position to have this financial flexibility, they don't have the cash resources, they're unwilling to pay above appraised values, they're unwilling to or don't have access to gifts, this is when you as an agent must make a business decision of how much time you're going to be investing with these buyers, because now you're just one of those agents submitting offers. You're one of 20 offers. In fact, most agents tell me they know their offer isn't going to get accepted the moment they offer it. They can just tell, right? You can feel it. Like, the listing agents, like, they're not really excited to talk to you. They're not really calling you back. I mean, you kind of know it. So you've got to put yourself in a position of strength and use it. But I want to give you more. Now, there's a thing. Let me take questions to the end. What we're going to do is, what's that?
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Okay, I came a little late, and I just want to know what the overall,
How to manage buyers in a bidding war.
managing buyers in bidding.
Okay. So what else can we do on the financing side to, again, make your offer more competitive in a competitive environment? There's a thing that real estate agents do. You probably heard of it. We ask buyers to write these sob story letters. Have you heard of it? I want you to write a letter on why you love this house, and make it a tearjerker. Make sure they're crying. If you, the sadder the story is, the better. You got to tug at the emotional purse strings of the homeowner. And I've seen these letters. I've read these letters. These are one step short of hysterical. I've seen them, oh, I love the wood, the beams. It reminds me of a child. I mean, anything you've seen. Now, by the way, there is no real empirical evidence that I have found that they actually work. I know they've done, it's like chicken soup. Can't hurt, but it may not help. So I don't know, and because I've never seen any evidence that they work, but I'm going to tell you there is something that I have seen evidence, and it's called getting a mortgage narrative on the buyer. And what does that mean? It's way more than just a 4-sentence letter saying that they're pre-approved up to 250 and whatever. You have the loan officer write a detailed narrative, not only that they are LPDU vetted for a certain amount of money, but why they are LP and DU vetted. What is their history? What is their work history? The fact that maybe they're an essential worker, meaning that the probabilities of them having a job interruption between now and closing is very low. Making that narrative come from a financial perspective. I can tell you, sellers and listing agents have really enjoyed that part of their decision-making, because if they're vetting 2 offers and they see this very detailed historical explanation as to why a buyer is in a position of strength, maybe talking about the buyer's savings pattern and why we as a lender feel good about that, it just sends a different message of comfort and security to sellers, because sellers aren't just accepting them just based upon the number. It's based upon the level of comfort and security and feeling about not only the number, but the person itself. So mortgage narratives are extraordinarily valuable in these bidding solutions that you're putting out there, okay? And again, we're going to take questions at the end, but I want to go through the material. And again, I apologize for talking a little fast, but I have a lot of material I want to get in, and Hakan and Elad will not give me until this afternoon to keep going, although I'm happy to do it. So I want to kind of keep going here. So what else can we insert in our offer? Let's talk about home inspections, because that's a big deal. Now, it's extraordinarily risky for a buyer to waive home inspections. And let's face it, there are sellers out there who are really feeling very strong, saying, well, I want you to waive the home inspection. I mean, that's a risky move. Now, a lot of buyers are saying, I want to do a home inspection. However, I'm not going to make that a contingency. I want to do it, but I'm not going to make it as a contingency. And, we all know in this business, and let's get down to the real world, okay? We can sit here and theorize all day long. We all know that if a buyer somehow wants to wiggle out of a transaction, I'm just asking in this room collectively, can they do it?
Yes.
They can do it. And if they can't wiggle out, they can certainly make it difficult for sellers, cause delays, make problems. So in the real world, if buyers get spooked by some inspection issue, it's a way out. But it doesn't mean we can't be somewhat creative with our inspection decisions. So rather than waiving the inspection clause, which is a risky decision for a buyer, you can cap it. You can put conditions in there saying that we are willing to put a clause in the inspection provision of the contract that says up to $5,000, $2,500, X amount of dollars of repair, we as a buyer will not require and will not be a reason to terminate the contract. We cap it. However, should the number go above the 2,000, 3,000, whatever number you want to put in there, now the buyer does have the ability to attempt to negotiate with the seller to find some kind of solution. So inspection clauses can be adapted. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing scenario. You can cap it with a certain amount. Now, again, these are solutions. Again, I'm not giving you theory. I'm giving you reality, because again, even buyers who waive these clauses still, can give sellers a hard time. So I think it's an important thing to keep that into perspective. What else can you put in there? Now, I was giving guidance on this roughly 4 weeks ago, and I even had an agent on a Zoom call say to me, "Oh, that's ridiculous," which I love to hear. Okay, I love that. One of the things that you want to do with buyers is you want to, when you make an offer, and again, competitive bidding, you want to represent to the seller that upon the seller's acceptance of the offer, the buyer agrees to lock in their interest rate, should they be getting financing. And it doesn't matter what the down payment is. 50% down, 20% down, it doesn't matter. And this is very important to sellers, because most people don't realize, most agents don't know that if a buyer applies for a mortgage and interest rates rise and the buyer no longer qualifies for the mortgage, can the buyer get out? Yes. So let's be proactive, let's be forward thinking. Let's represent to a seller that our offer is contingent upon a mortgage. However, we will in writing agree that upon acceptance, we will lock our rate in for no less than 60 or 75 days, whatever you can negotiate with your lender. That gives the seller a sense of what? Comfort, that your buyer isn't going to float out of qualifying. These are important things. And by the way, this sends a message to a listing agent that I'm dealing with a buyer's agent that's what? On the ball, thinking about tomorrow, predicting. That's what value add is all about. Our job as agents isn't to react to what's happening. Our job as agents is to predict what could happen. Who do you think is a better agent? The one who can respond when there's a problem, or the one who can be proactive, take action before a problem occurs to keep everything safe? This is the difference of real estate. So it's a very, very proactionary way of thinking. And I'm going to tell you, listing agents and sellers like this. And you know what they'll say? They'll be, I wonder why these other offers haven't even addressed these issues. Wow, this is a buyer who's really seems to be on top of the game, and it's important to recognize that. So it's important to think about. What else can you insert in your offers? A lot of sellers are having challenges in finding homes, correct? Everyone out there, well, it's closing too quick. And we've all heard this: lease back, use and occupancy. These are words, these have been around for 50 years, but use and occupancies, these become very popular in these recent months. Now, it's important that as agents, you have absolute clarity on this use and occupancy tool. Number one, it's critical to know that should you successfully negotiate a use and occupancy agreement with a seller, generally speaking, lenders don't like them to last longer than, anybody want to guess? 60 days. After 60 days, the lender, if they do a post-closing audit, which they do from time, it's not happening on every transaction, and they go knock on the door, and Mr. Jones is supposed to be living there, and Mr. Smith's still living there, and they go, hey, Mr. Jones, and it's like, I'm not Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, he's my landlord now. Now that loan, that mortgage is theoretically in jeopardy. The lender reserves the right to call it due, which is a problem, right? They call it due, it's a problem. Number two, they can require the buyer to come up with the extra down payment to turn it into an investment property. So if they've come up with 10% down, they now have to come up with 25 or 30. The interest rate that they negotiated usually has the investment rate attached to it, which is usually 1.5 to maybe 2% higher. And that might push the buyer into what? Not qualifying. It's a problem. So these are all things that can impact. So it's important that you understand these use and occupancy clauses. However, hold on, let me take questions at the end. However, they should be looked into and offered, and always go into these offers with the question, even before as a buyer's agent, you make the offer, get some proactive perspective to see if that's something that the seller will be looking for, and try to get some clarity on what that is. So the use and occupancy provision, although nothing really unique per se, it's really, really important that you understand them. Now, in this pandemic, the use and occupancy clause had a very different flavor to it. Does anybody know what that is? Because the owner of that property turns into a what? A tenant. Anybody heard about tenants being unable to be evicted?
Yes.
Big deal. Big deal. So in this situation, it's important to know, and I've already heard many stories about, and I say many, but more than there should be, about sellers who've done use and occupancies. It's time for them to leave, and they call up the new buyer and say, what? We're not ready. We're going to stay here, and there's not a thing you can do about it, and sorry. Well, theoretically, in different states, it's different, but May 1st, and we keep on getting new guidance. So the idea is, it's very important to understand that these use and occupancy provisions can be used. They are of value in certain circumstances, but it doesn't mean you can't stop there. And what that means is, you want to be very accommodating to the seller's next move. And that's why I'm going to give you another perspective in terms of making your offer shine amongst other offers. We know that somewhere between 75 and 80% of sellers are going to use the money out of their sale to go do what? Buy another home. We know that a very healthy percentage of those sellers are going to probably be getting a mortgage. But we as buyer's agents, we never are thinking about the seller's next move. Not my job. Why am I worrying about what the seller is going to do? I'm going to tell you something, and this is something that you can negotiate with buyers as another little feature. What if in your offer, you know how buyers are raising offers, trying to compete with other offers? Why not offer? Everybody holding down? Get a tissue. You're going to start tearing up. One of the things that we will do for a seller who accepts our bid is we will provide an incentive on their next purchase. What does that mean? Well, a buyer who buys a house and gets a mortgage, generally buyers buy mortgages with how many points? Everybody know what a point is? A point represents 1%. It's called a buy down. In a 2 and 3% interest rate environment like we've been in for a long time right now, you don't hear many buyers that are buying down interest rates because there's no need to. Rates are so low. Why pay money now to lower my interest rate up front. What it basically works is for every 1%. So let's say you're borrowing 400,000, you give the bank 4,000, which is 1%. And the rate that would be, let's say 3.25 goes down to 3 or maybe 2 7/8. You pay money now, you save money over the life of the loan. Not a very popular thing right now. However, what if we said to a seller, part of our offer, I know that you're trying to bid one against the other, but what we're willing to do is we've pre-negotiated an arrangement with a lender. You don't have to use the lender, but we have a relationship with a lender who will help you provide financing on your next purchase. And what we're going to do as a buyer is we're going to help contribute to buying down your interest rate on your next purchase. So yes, right now rates are 3.5, but if you should somehow use our lender who we've pre-negotiated with to offer a buy down to you, whatever house you buy, wherever you buy, whatever state you buy in, whatever mortgage you go with, you know you'll be getting somewhere between 1/4 to 3/8 lower should you want to move forward. We've now linked, could be whenever. It doesn't matter when they do it. We're just coming up with the money. So now instead of a buyer having to get caught into a bidding war, they might end up paying $7,000 or $8,000 more. Maybe their buy down on the interest rate on the mortgage on the next person might be $3,000 or $4,000. To a seller, they might see that as a significant benefit going forward. Again, it's just an idea. There are sellers who've liked that. They've come back and said, wow, that's really innovative. I've never heard of such a thing. I got 39 offers on the table and not one other offer even talks about my next move. I'm moving to Florida. I'm going to get a $200,000 mortgage. I was planning on not paying any points. But you know what? If I'm going to get 1 point from the buyer as part of a buy down, no, I was looking at a 3.25 interest rate, but you know what? If I go with these people, I'll get a 2.875 interest rate if I make the decision right now. You see what I'm saying? It opens up another conversation of differentiation and value to a potential seller. And again, we'll take questions at the end of this and we'll go through it all. Okay. What else can we be doing? As far as, keeping our buyer in the game, right? One of the things that we all run the risk of doing, right? As soon as the seller accepts your offer, one of the things that buyers fear is that your seller has accepted your offer, but the seller is going to continue to what? Show it. They're going to continue to show it. Now, part of the expectation meeting that I like you to have with buyers is you want to let them know that this is a reality, that your offer and accepted offer isn't really your house until when? Settlement, when the money clears. And we want to try to. So again, a great conversation to have. Now, again, don't be surprised when buyers react a certain way, but say to a buyer, there's a strategy that I like to do, which is basically I like to pay what we call you can call it whatever you want to. I call it a pair-off fee or a stop showing fee. Why not make inclusive of your offer to ensure that your buyer is an incentive to a seller to no longer what? Show the property. I kind of want to know. I want to at least try. I want to at least try to give a seller some reason, some benefit to agree to stop showing the property. Now, I can tell you this. If you don't ask the seller to stop showing, you're almost guaranteed that they what? They're gonna. If you don't ask, you don't get. You have to kind of make that part of your presentation and say, we've agreed upon a price of X, but we are willing even to provide you with some remuneration on top of that. If you agree to not show it, don't have that open house on Sunday. We want to know that this is going forward. Now, again, if you don't ask, you're guaranteed not to get, but you have to kind of let the seller know it and the listing agent know it. That's important to you. Now, remember, as listing agents, we all spend a certain amount of time as buyer's agents, right? And we know that sometimes there are listing agents that would love this deal to be what? Done. Not that listing agents should ever make a decision that benefits them and not their client, but it's a conversation, to have. And I would share with you, we've done this. We've done it at all different price points where we've offered this. I mean, in the multi-million-dollar price range, there's been buyers that have offered sellers $20,000, $30,000 just to agree to no longer show the property.
Is that on top of the purchase? And that's immediately.
Yeah, separate money on the side. It's almost like a payment to it's almost like a remuneration. It's actually like a fee. Now you can make it on top of the price after you've negotiated it. You can include it. You can do it separate. There's lots of ways in which you. Of course, it's legal. No, I only teach illegal thing. Totally elite, totally legal, totally transparent, totally on the. Believe me, the bank never cares about you giving the seller more money. Remember, they're financing. They just don't want you to give less. You know, so it's transparent, it's legal, it's allowable, it's smart, it's creative, it's different. It's all good. So the idea is that it's just another way to keep you a little bit more engaged in the process. Some other things that I want you to also think about in terms of attorney review. In New Jersey, every state is different. There's an automatic what? 3-day attorney review clause. And we all know that most attorneys, when they get the contract, does anyone know what most attorneys do when they get the contract? They automatically do what to the attorney review? What do they do? What was that?
Decline.
They decline because they're looking for more time. It's the way it is. They want more time on the attorney review. I want you to start getting on the phone with your attorneys and start putting in there that you want to make sure that these attorney review clauses are not going to be erroneously extended to make it easier for them. Keeping these attorney review periods a little bit tight, so it's not going to give opportunity for things to entertain other offers. So keep on top of your attorneys with respect to these attorney review clauses, and let the listing agent know that we are prepared, while we're not looking to shorten the attorney review clause period, although you could, we are looking not to extend it beyond what the contract says. We're willing to make sure that we're going to do whatever due diligence that we need to do to make sure that if we submit our offer on Monday, as far as we, the buyer, is concerned, we're going to make sure that we're ready to formally be in contract no later than the extension of whatever the original attorney review. Put it out there. Now, if you were a listing agent and you were a seller, how would you feel about that? How would you feel about that buyer? More secure, a little bit better. These people are real. They're proactive. They're thinking. A lot of sellers are not even going to realize what that is. You know, so it's a good thing to put out there. So I wanted to share it with you. Let me give you another unbelievable one. Now, New Jersey, and I'm assuming most of the people on this call, most of you that were in New Jersey. New Jersey is unique with respect to closing dates and with respect to contingencies. And what that means, and this is very important, and if you're not taking notes, I'm going to test all of you because you must have the memory of a savant. You'll know it all. Could you repeat back what I said? Got to take notes. If you're not taking notes, I don't know what you're doing. When it comes to contingencies and closing dates, New Jersey is unique. And what that means is closing dates and contingency dates are not binding. Agreed? They are hypothetical. When you put a closing date in the contract, it's hypothetical. When you put a contingency date in the contract, it's hypothetical. So what I want you to do, we've all heard of this expression called time of the essence. Now, in other states like Florida, when you put a closing date in a contract, if you don't meet the closing date, if you're a buyer and don't meet it, your deposit money is subject to forfeiture, and you theoretically can be held responsible for liquidated damages of a buyer, of the seller. I'm sorry. So these dates, if you miss your contingency date on mortgage, you're supposed to get your mortgage by April 15th. April 15th, you go back. Then always like, it's like in New Jersey. We're like, okay, when are you going to get it? In other states, if you don't get it, you're subject to loss. You've defaulted on your contract. So why not operate in New Jersey like we do in other states? And think about this. You present your offer to the buyer, to the seller. We don't make our contingency dates and closing dates hypothetical. We make them time of the essence. We have the right to do it. So we actually include in our offer that the closing date proposed that we're making of April 30th, we're willing to make that a time of the essence closing date on our side, which means if we are unable to succeed and do what we need to do by April 30th, you as the seller, can retain our deposit theoretically as liquidated damages. Now, if a seller saw this, what would that say to the seller about you and the buyer? They're serious. How many other agents are making time of the, we have people, how many other agents are making time of the essence offers in their transactions?
A lot of this depends on the attorneys, though.
We'll get to them in a minute. I'm talking about us, right? Now, when I bring this up, a lot of agents say, what about the attorneys? I'm just having fun with you. Because the attorneys are going to knock it out. First off, if you're recommending an attorney, you need to have a meeting with an attorney and say, in order for me to be competitive in this market, I'm going to start including, I know New Jersey doesn't require it, but I'm going to start asking for time of the essence closing dates in my transactions. And you know what the attorneys are going to say? Don't do it. I can never get it done by that time. An attorney in New Jersey who tells you they can't meet the TOA timeframe, don't use them. Why can they do it in Mississippi? Why can they do it in Florida? Why can they do it in Oklahoma? Go to Oklahoma. You know what the attorney say? No problem. I'm happy to do it. I'll get that sucker closed. No problem. How can they do it there? We can't do it here. Because here, we're just used to it. We're just used to the fact that there's no pressure for us to do it. But I want my buyer's bid to be won. Take questions at the end, because I want to get through it. So the idea is that time of the essence is a great tool. It's a great tool. But only use it if you're going to be diligent with what you need to do. You can't agree to it. And if, let's say, we make our contingency date a hard date, what does the buyer need to do? All hands on deck to make sure that you supply to the lender what you need to supply. All hands on deck. The lender who you're working with, you got to tell the lender right up front, if you can't meet this contingency date by X time frame, let me know. And if you said that you can do it, I want it in writing that you could do it. And if you don't do it in writing, you got to cut off your pinky. I'm just kidding. You got to make them put it in writing. If a lender won't put it to you in writing that they can meet the date, what does that tell you? If a loan officer won't do it, a lot of loan officers will do it. But the honest loan officers will tell you, listen, I can't do that. I know that you need a contingency date in 30 days. I'm an honest loan officer. I cannot meet that. That's good news, because now you have to go find a lender who can. And if you can't, you know what I'm saying? This is what we do. This is called vetting out the issue before it's an issue. And you got to be very strong with that. And remember, if you get an honest lender, and there's many of them out there who will say, yeah, we can meet that. Now, what do you think the pressure is on them to perform? Significant, because they know everybody else, they can wait. I can't wait. It's just another way to do it. I've been doing this, and let me tell you something. I've already gotten the hostile phone calls from lenders. And that's when I know it's working. I'm getting these phone calls from mortgage guys saying to me, Scott, why are you telling these realtors that we have to perform by a certain date? That's not how we do it here. You know, I always promise to do things in 30 days and I got no shot. I mean, come on. I mean, you're unveiling it, man. You're selling us out. You're giving away all our secrets. I go, no, I'm not. We have to adapt to this market. If you can't do it, don't do it. And what's funny is that the lender's like, Scott, but what they do is they have 30 loans. They have 27 refis. They got 5 purchase loans, right? Where do you think that purchase loan goes into the queue? Because they don't want to disappoint. They know they're under pressure to perform. That's my job as a buyer's agent. I am the quarterback. I am the leader, the manager, the director. I must do things because my buyer must have the best shot at winning when there's 20 other offers on the table. Okay. So it's really, really an important thing to think about doing that. What else? Let's think about seller pressure. Sellers have pressure of where they're going to move to. They also have pressure of what they're going to do with their contents. Why not? And we've done this. Part of our offer is we put right in the offer, any contents you choose not to remove based upon time, expense, hassle, we as the buyer will absorb that. We'll take care of it. No worries. You've got that gigantic safe that weighs 4,000 pounds in the basement. We'll take care of it. Now, again, don't freak out with this. Don't say, oh my, this is great. Just know that buyers in this market have been subject to paying 10, 20, 30, many thousands of dollars above to be in the game. Often, some of the suggestions that I'm making might end up costing a buyer a whole lot less. because we're not selling money to the seller, we're selling convenience. And there's a lot of sellers out there that need that. They want convenience. They like convenience. That's a factor for them. That's a factor for them. So I share this with you to think about it. I have other agent clients who are arranging for temporary storage facilities where in the offer, they say to the buyer, we're going to present to the seller that we will make part of our offer the ability to remove some of their contents. We'll even store it at $136 a month for 3 months until they decide what they want to do with it. You'd be surprised. $136 a month has often won over other bids that are thousands of dollars higher. Why? It's just different. Now, don't be afraid, because sometimes agents will say to me, Scott, well, if we share this, aren't we going to like that listing agent's just going to go to the highest offer and say, well, let's do this. I've already seen it happen. You know what happens? These other agents are like, what? You want me to pay what? I'm not going to pay to move your stuff. Like, we want that. I want that. Even though they're not thinking it's only $136.
But what happens to just jump into it? A few occasions I've come up with.
You know what? Something can always happen. We can never live life in fear of what other people will do. I'm going to tell you this. Most people don't do it, right? Everybody here can change the oil in their car. Who does it, right? We can all go on YouTube, look at it, see it. We don't do it. So don't be afraid to reveal something, because at the end of the day, somebody has to execute on it. Somebody has to make it happen. And remember, you have to use your skills to articulate and deliver and talk about it and do it. That's why, if you can, and this is sometimes tough, if you can, listen, I'm all about the future. I hate going back to the past. I don't like doing anything that's old and antiquated. That's just kind of my thing. But there are some things that are old and antiquated that I still do like. And the oldest tactic out there, it's like literally from the horse and buggy era, is we used to present offers live. It used to be when you were all in your car seats. We would go to the homeowner's house and we would go sit in one room and the listing agent would be in the other room and we would just try to make it happen there. Again, many of you like, what? Like you didn't, like, I don't do that. Like, that's not what I do. I'm busy. I'm not doing that. I mean, sit in a house. I'm going to tell you something. It's an archaic practice, but if you can do it, it's incredibly effective. Okay. First off, if you don't ask to do it, guaranteed what? Won't happen. Don't be shy in saying to the listing agent, you know, I do things a little different and I'd love to present an offer and I would love to maybe come by. I'll sit in my car. I'll sit out back, but I'd love to come there. I'd like to give you and the seller the offer. Love to do it.
Beautiful when you watch.
Love to do it. Now, there are some listing agents, they don't want to do it. They're sitting at home in their pajamas, watching Judge Judy, fielding offers. They don't want to do it. I get it. But there are some that aren't that way. And I know some of the people in this room right now who would probably, if some agent said to you, I'd love to come present it, I'll sit in the car, I just want to be there to make it happen. Some of you just might say, who might say yes in this room? Who might agree to it? Now, by the way, you're doing your seller a service. Forget you.
Why, as a listing agent?
Yes, because now you're there. You know. Now, again, what does it say about the buyer who you're representing? These people, they're not just sitting in Brooklyn, in the basement. Let me know what happens when I go upstairs and my Wi-Fi works. It sends a different message and you're there and you can make it happen. I'm going to tell you, we've put deals together where there's 15 other offers and my client's sitting outside in their car with the buyer in the back seat, deciding what to do. It just is a different thing. It sends a different message. Again, this isn't an archaic practice. You guys don't remember this. I remember what this used to be like. You know, they'd put realtors out in the rain. Hakan, do you remember? We would sit in the rain. It's pouring. You know, can I have an umbrella? No, you have to do with it. But it's a different way to do it. Again, not every listing agent will agree, but some will agree. Some like it. Some like the fact that it's real, because one of the other realities of our business, as crazy as it sounds in 2021, is the number one thing that realtors don't do fast enough is what?
Write up the offer.
Or do what? Call back. On my way here this morning, I was on the phone call with a client of mine who was dealing with a very tough situation because the other agent who presented the offer on her listing admitted, because the seller was freaking out because the buyer wasn't responding fast enough. Like 3 days clicked off. What's happening? 3 days. Can you imagine? The agent called up and said, listen, I'm really sorry. I'm super busy. I'm so busy. I just wasn't able to get back to you fast enough. I mean, this was like no shame, you know? And the idea is that who here can share with me an experience in this market right now where agents aren't calling you back fast enough? Everybody can relate. But when you're on the driveway, when you're right there, there's no excuse. I'm right here. I'm here to make a deal happen. We've had offers accepted thousands of dollars below other offers on the table because we showed that we were ready, willing, and able to respond, putting hard dates, hard commitments, hard things, ready to make it happen. So these are the types of things that are I think going to help you in this unusual, you know, in this strange time that we're in right now, you know, because again, you know, when you're in a bidding war environment like we're in right now, when buyers are frustrated, they often point their frustration at who? When they lose offers, who do they get upset at? And I would say to you, and this might be a blasphemous statement, but we deserve a lot of it. When we unsuccessfully negotiate on their behalf, I believe we deserve a lot of that blame. You know why? Because maybe we're not using all the tools in the toolbox to help make it happen for them. We just sometimes think, well, the reason you lost it, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is your offer wasn't the highest, right? Yours wasn't the highest. That's why you lost it. That's what they feel, or you didn't guide me. But we all know, and you guys are listing agents in this room, is every offer that you're accepting out there right now the highest offer? It may not necessarily be, it's maybe the best offer. And best and highest aren't necessarily the same thing. You ever hear this expression, highest and best? It's usually highest or best, you know? And these are some very, very real factors that are out there in this market right now to help you do this. You know, on that note, with respect to bidding wars, you know, the other advice and guidance that I want to be giving to buyers in this market, and again, you know, I'm gonna throw 3 words out there that cause some agents to start to cry. Elad, get pillows. There might be people falling over. Exclusive buyer agency. If you're not doing it, if you've not embraced it, if you are an agent still fighting this exclusive buyer agency thing with the fundamental mindset that it doesn't work and no one will sign it and it's not going to happen, it's not fair, I wouldn't do it if I was a buyer, all the words that I hear all the time, you're just missing the boat. In fact,
You change your mind?
I've never changed my mind
So
on it.
you say yes to buyer agent agreement?
Of course,
A
of
requirement.
course.
You-
Of course we do. Buyer agency, let's understand what it is, just to make sure that we're clear. What we're doing is we're asking buyers to commit to us. We are asking buyers to choose us and to hire us for a period of time to represent them on their journey to buy a home. Now, it's not forever. It's got a time frame to it. 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, whatever you want. But in this market, if you present a buyer with this exclusive buyer agency option, and they say to you with no shame, they say to you, Dvora, are you crazy? You want me to commit to you? Are you crazy? There's no way I would ever sign that document, ever. To me, that's good information. Because what the buyer's right up saying to you, what are they saying to you?
They'll take another agent if they can.
No, they're saying, no, much worse. They're saying
They don't give
you.
a crap about you. They don't need you.
Yeah, no, even worse. They're saying you, Reese, you're worthless. You're a worthless human being. You're worthless. I want you to work for me when I want what, and by the way, I'll sell you out. I'm being dramatic. You see, the fear of asking the question, most agents don't ask the question because they are terrified by the answer that they're going to say what? Are you crazy? Don't be afraid of that answer. Embrace that answer. I want to know if they think it's crazy. I want them to reveal. I want to know, Scott, there's no way.
to or not.
They go, I've had buyers say to me, commit to you? I'm not even committed to my wife. You, I know you for 8 minutes. I know for 30 years I'm not committed to her. I commit to nobody. I want to know that. Because you know what's funny? Well, you're not only wasting your time, you're wasting their time. Because if a buyer isn't committed to you, guess what? You're not committed to them either. Not popular at parties, but I'm going to tell you that. You know all these buyers that are calling you? I know every agent right now. When the phone rings, it's a buyer. You know what they do? They go, oh, I got it. I'm sick of it. You got your voice. Oh, my voicemail. I wish it was full. So exclusive buyer agency in this market, crucial, because if a buyer is unwilling to do it, they are just saying to you, listen, you're one of 10. The likelihood, and I would rather, and let me ask you this, if everybody in this room has 10 buyers in your orbit right now, you got 10 buyers calling you 24/7, anything available? And you brought 10 of these people in the room right now. You sat them in this room right now, you put them on a Zoom call. Do it. Get all 10 of your buyers on a Zoom call. Say, hey, everybody, good. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like the Brady Bunch, what are you doing? Say, hey. Say, listen, I'm changing the way I do my business. And they're gonna be like, what do you mean? I'm changing it. What do you mean, Scott? What I'm doing is, going forward, I'm giving you all the option of working with me on exclusive basis. So I've all shared with you, you see it on the screen, my exclusive buyer agency agreement. What that basically means is going forward, we are committed to each other. I'm committed to you, you're committed to me for a period of months, blah, blah, blah. You lay out all the benefits. And on that call with 8 boxes on a Zoom call, 7 of the boxes, they start laughing hysterically. They're laughing. They're like, look at this guy. He's actually asking us. And then one by one, they leave the meeting. And you're left with 3 people on the call. And those 3 people say, I'll do it. Would everybody take that metric? Who here would take that deal? All day long. But you see, buyers give realtors an illusion of work. It's crazy. I know agents, they go, I can't come to the meeting, Scott. I go, why is that? I have a showing at 3. A showing at 3? What does that mean? Well, I'm going to show it. And my buyer, who I don't even know where they are in the queue, this house is going to sell in 30 seconds, but I can't because I got a buyer. No, you don't have a buyer.
I'm not a tour guide, but that's what I was doing.
Well, exactly. But you don't really have a buyer. You have a prospect, maybe. You don't have a client because that person hasn't what? Hired you. So it's a mindset. You know, when we go on listing appointments, right? You go on a listing appointment. Imagine you were on a listing appointment with a seller. You went there, you pitched it, and I'm talking about in relatively normal times, even in this time. You go on a listing appointment and you negotiate you do your whole listing presentation, education. You negotiate everything. You tell them all the services, tours, videos, drones, you give them it all. They agree to your price recommendation and they go, okay. Who here would love that? But the seller has one little issue. They have one little problem with your offer. They're not willing to sign the listing agreement. They go, listen, do the open house, do it all. I'm just not signing anything. Who here would do that? Most wouldn't. I wouldn't tell you to do it, even in this market. You're going to go represent people and do all this stuff without a piece of. But let's now flip to the buyer side. Can anybody relate to this? A buyer says to you, find me homes, show me homes, book appointments, make appointments, take me there, bring me there, take me to lunch, bring me to cup of coffee, but I'm not willing to sign. Do we all work with buyers that way? We do it all the time. We work with buyers with no commitment every day of the week because it gives the illusion that we're what? That's right. It's an illusion of work. To me, working is working with clients, people who hire you. And when somebody doesn't want to hire you, when someone doesn't want to hire you, don't get upset. Don't cry. Go find somebody else who will. There are plenty of buyers in this market who would love a real estate agent whom they've hired, who is hired by them to perform a function. And now they know that, and by the way, if you've got 8 prospects in your orbit, you may not be able to get back to them all, but if you got 3 clients, you should be able to. And by the way, if you can't get back to your client, do the honorable thing and what? Terminate your exclusive buyer. Put it right in writing. Say, my exclusive buyer agency agreement. Let me tell you something. As much of it's a commitment of you to me, it's a commitment of me to you. If for any reason I am unable to fulfill the response time, whatever your expectation is, rip it up, because I'm not in the business of holding, but I do want to create environments of commitment. If you don't ask for these agreements, if anybody's looking for guaranteed results, I'll give it to you. If you don't ask for your buyer agency commitment, they're not going to ask you. They're not going to say, hey, listen, Connor, listen. You know, it's funny, you didn't mention this. We've been sitting here, you laid out this whole expectation. Would it be okay if I can commit to you for 6 months? Would it be okay if I agree? Not, if they're not going to come to you with it, you got to go to them with it. Don't be fearful. Let me just take the question at the end. Let me just take it at the end, okay? So the idea is that this is the way we want to try to navigate with buyers. And by the way, in a very tight market like this, what else can we do for buyers who have hired you? There's something that I can tell you every buyer wants in a pandemic. They want not only an agent who's going to make an appointment to go see a listing that I have found. They want a buyer agent who is going to bring me an opportunity that I haven't found. And what does that mean? It means that one of the benefits of hiring me as your exclusive buyer agent is I only bring my clients inventory that has not yet hit the market. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, how would you feel about that? Would you be okay with that? Is it okay if I bring you inventory that's not on the open market? Is that okay? How many people have buyers who say, no, I don't want that. No, I want it to hit the market. I want everybody and their brother to come after it. Then let me know. They love that. So what does that mean? If you start acquiring for yourself exclusive buyer agency clients, that is your trigger to go out there and start having conversations with homeowners about potentially doing an off-market transaction. Now, by the way, full disclosure, I am not an off-market guy. I don't like off-market realtors. I loathe them because I think off-market realtors are hurting sellers. That's what I believed in March of 2020. But as Scott gets up here on these calls and talks about adapting, I better do the same thing. In a pandemic, I found, to my surprise, how many sellers, even after the agent said, listen, off market, Mr. Seller, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose. How many sellers said, listen, right now, I don't want everybody and their brother coming through my house. If you can put something together, and I said, Scott, don't hold on to yesterday. Let's adapt. And I'm only going to start going after these people because I hate the I got the buyer thing because it's usually a what? A lie. I like to do it with truth. I like to call up a seller or a homeowner and say, I know that you're happy living here in Howell. You never want to leave. You love it. You love it. You love it. However, I'm a little different. I currently have 36 buyers under exclusive agreement with me, which means I am their representative. And one of the things, one of the offers I made to them was I bring them opportunity that may not be in the open market. I don't know if you're thinking about it. You may want to live here forever. You may love the snow, love to can't make a left, whatever it is. I would like to present that to you. Would you have interest? And it's surprising how many sellers said, all right, I don't want everybody, but I'm willing to consider that. And now you're off to the races. And now when you call your buyer and say, listen, I have a property, don't know. I know that you were looking for a 4-bedroom, it's a 5-bedroom. I know that you wanted a pool, it's got no pool. I know that you wanted a deck, it's got no deck. I know that you wanted a fireplace, it's got no fireplace, but it's not on the market. You want to go take a look? And they say, all right, let's go see it. And they walk in, fall in love, and you're off to the races. This is, again, this is 2021 real estate. This is not 1986 real estate. This isn't even 2020 real estate in January. This is the paradigm in which to work. And I'm going to tell you that there is a tremendous, tremendous demand in the buyer space for agent differentiation. I mean, if you ever, go to a party one day and don't tell anybody you're a realtor and say, hey, what do you think of realtors? You'll hear the real story. Okay, they don't call back, they don't respond, they'll sell you out. Unfortunately, everybody in this room is carrying the burden of all these bad agents out there. We're carrying that burden. You carry the burden of other people who didn't perform. Their bad experience falls on you. So you have to kind of redefine it with people and give them a new experience, a new methodology of working. Sit with a buyer and say, okay, you want to hire me? Wonderful. Now I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to share with you what you can expect. Not of me, but also of this market. And you lay out all these things and they go, well, I don't have any money. I don't have a gift. I'm not willing to overpay. I don't want to play your way. While I would love to work with you, I can't, because I probably not going to be able to perform for you. I'm not in the business of failure. I'm only in the business of success for my clients. So I get it. I understand what you want, but what you want, I can't deliver. And cut it loose. And think about all the time you would have in your real estate lives. I'm just curious right now, if some of you cut loose some of these buyers who not only can't perform, but won't perform, who here by a show of hands would have an automatic multiple hours a week of time? And everyone raised their hand here. And here's what I would tell you. You can take that time, spend it with your family, take your kid to the park, or do something radical like go get a listing. Free your real estate life. What's the third option? Go get a listing. Free your real estate life up to get and focus on the listing. Because in this business right now, you tell me, you take a listing right now, almost in any market, and you price it right, almost in any market, you have almost guaranteed money. Would you agree? A buyer, every time a buyer, most of us can relate to the fact, every time a buyer calls you, even if it's a referral, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
25%, I'm joking.
Seriously, what does it pop into your head when a buyer calls you today? What's the first thing you're thinking about?
I'm not going to be wasting my time.
Right. You go, oh, I don't even know if I can do it. I mean, I don't even know if these people are ready to do it. I don't know. And then you then take on the job that they expect of you. And I think it's important that we need people to take on the responsibilities and the needs that we not just expect of them, but we know what succeeds in this market. And we all know it in this room right now. We know a buyer today who has that financial understanding to raise their monthly payment $200 to $250 a month means that that's a buyer who's willing to negotiate tens of thousands of dollars off a list price. I want that buyer. I want that buyer. Now, again, we're going to try our best, but we know in this market, you're not going to buy a property at 94% of list price. It's not going to happen right now. Maybe it'll happen in June. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen, right? We have no idea. Maybe when interest rates jump up to 7%, I'm not saying they will. Who knows what they will, right? But when things change, we'll change. But right now, these are some of the things. And I'm going to tell you what's the craziest part about it. And I've been involved in literally hundreds of these conversations with buyers in the past few months. 99% of them absolutely love it. They love it. They love knowing where it's at. There's always some buyers who get offended, like, well, what do you mean? I'm not gonna, my grandfather said to me, never overpay for real estate. You buy real estate, you make money when you buy. And when you get that guy from Staten Island, who's unmovable in thinking process, say, totally understand. Totally understand. You know what? These meetings were really valuable. They were valuable both of us because you know what? After my analysis, after our time together for 30 minutes, I know without a doubt, I'm probably not the right solution for you. Does anyone think that's an insulting thing to say?
Yes.
I think it's a totally respectful thing to say. Because if I cannot deliver to a client, aren't you being respectful of stepping away?
It's hard.
No, I didn't say what's hard. I said what's respectful. It's respectful to step away from something that your heart's not into. It is unethical in my book to step into something with somebody where you can't stand them in the first 30 seconds. Who here could relate to that? Anybody can relate to that?
Not only can I
30
relate to that, I think that you always need to fire your loss leader. And that would be your loss leader. That would be the customer that wastes all your time, sucks up all your energy. And I also think that, and I'm not even a realtor. I just got my license, but I've been in real estate in a different perspective for a long time.
Okay.
That these exclusive buyer agency agreements, they create, so those buyers are the reason you have so many bad agents. And if you get the exclusive buyer agency agreement, I think that, you'll have less buyers, but you'll sell more houses.
There you go. Elizabeth, you've only had your license for 30 seconds, but you totally get it. And you know what the good thing is about Elizabeth? Hold on. You know what the good thing is about Elizabeth? You see, her name is Elizabeth. The good thing about Elizabeth is, and this is very, no, this is the good thing about Elizabeth, because Elizabeth does not have any bad habits to break. You see, Elizabeth, it's the 20-year veteran that I struggle with. It's the 20-year veteran who's like, no one's going to sign it. That's not the way we did it. Back when I used to get on my horse and ride little Nellie to church, that's not how we did it. That's the way a lot of agents are. They're so antiquated. They're so locked in another era. They don't think that way. So good for you, Elizabeth, because we don't have to unbreak you. So thank you for the comment. So with that, let me take some questions, if I can answer any questions for you. So I just had a question. He goes, why would a buyer not sign it? Let me give you the answer. Because they don't like you. They don't want you. They just want to use you. They want you to, and by the way, when buyers, but they don't want to be committed because they think that if they
Want a free service.
From New York.
right, they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. They don't want to be committed. They don't see the benefit of a commitment. They think they got to be involved with everybody. So there are very real reasons why buyers won't sign it. Buyers might have had a bad experience with another realtor. They go, listen, the only experience I had with another agent was a bad one. I'm not going to commit. I don't want to be in trouble. So the idea is that, yes, there are reasons, but I find usually the reason is, and this is important, they just don't see the benefit of doing it. Go ahead. What are some of the benefits? Well, I've listed some of them now. Do you think they're going to get all those things from every other agent? Absolutely not. So the things that I shared with you are the benefits that we've put forth for the buyer. We've put forth tangible. I don't want to rehash them, but we've recorded this. You can listen to it again. Type a list. Absolutely. You can have your, yes, absolutely. And these are the things that I provide. And by the way, there's one other word, which I like to throw it out there because it doesn't really get a lot of good play. It's not a great word. We're not really using this. We're not really telling our kids to do this, but it's called fiduciary, right? Most buyers have absolutely no idea what fiduciary means. In fact, most realtors don't. I bet if I gave a fiduciary test right now, we'd all fail. Fiduciary is a big deal, right? When buyers who feel very comfortable going to listing agents, which is a problem, but it's true, they're often giving up their fiduciary. So sometimes just sharing with a buyer that when you hire me and you have one person in your orbit, you are guaranteed to have that fiduciary relationship with me. It's a relationship of trust. Everything that you tell me must be made secret. I don't sell you out. These are all most buyers don't even know what that is. Yes.
Okay, so I when I work with buyers and I do exactly what you said, I actually had a buyer and I said, if I do find you something, well, I charge them for basically finding them a house.
Right.
So my question is, at what rate, how did it's like, do you charge a seller? Do you charge the buyer?
Yeah. Well, again, you could charge a salary. I'm all about that.
I know, let's say I'll find you a house, I find you something.
Absolutely.
Are you okay to pay whatever, let's say $10,000?
Am I okay with it? I'd be sad if I did. Here's the thing. When you work with a buyer, when you sign an exclusive buyer agency agreement, let's talk about the compensation there. You say to the buyer, you can do it one of several ways to pay me.
Right.
You can pay me directly out of pocket. That's option A. Option B, I will attempt to negotiate my fee within the scope of the transaction. However, if I'm unable to do that, so let's say you were looking for a 3% target buyer agency fee, and the listing agent was only paying you 1%, then we would look for a 2% compensation from the buyer side. So we would look to create that total 3% compensation. So you can do it that way. In a non-pandemic world, and does everybody think we're going to get there? Do we think we're going to come out of this? Okay, me too. Me too. Me too. Look at Texas. Let's go to Texas. Here's the thing. There is a tool There is a tool, and I didn't talk about it today because it's not relevant right now, but there's another tool called the seller concession tool. Now, right now, in a very hot market, there's no incentive for sellers to pay concessions. And basically, a seller concession is an amount of money that the seller contributes towards the buyer's closing costs. Right now, it's a very tough sell because we don't really in that environment. But when things normalize, let me tell you something. Seller concessions are a great tool. And if you can negotiate a seller concession in a transaction, does anyone know what costs can be absorbed inside of a seller concession? Can points on a mortgage cover it?
Yeah.
Yes. Appraisal fees? Yes. Title insurance? Yes. Inspection fees? Yes. How about buyer agency fees? Yes. So an exclusive buyer agency commission when times normalize, we're not there yet. If you want to get a 1, 2, or 3% fee, you can embed it inside of a seller concession.
How does that work? I've never seen that.
I know you've never seen it before. That's why you're here.
Where can we learn more about paying down, buying down points?
Where can we learn more about paying down points? Well, what I would do is everybody should call their trusted loan officer and say, hey, I just got done an hour and 40 minutes with this psychopath, Scott Einbinder from New Jersey. Trust me, they know who I am. And say, he mentioned something about buying down the rate. And the loan officer is going to say, well, buying down the rate, rates are so low, a lot of buyers aren't paying it. And you're going to say, welcome to the 21st century. Say, I just want to know about it. What does it mean? If a buyer gave you 1% of the loan amount, what would that do to the interest rate? And the loan officer will tell you, well, that you buy your rate down 1/8, 1/4, 3/8. It depends upon the day of the week. But the idea is we're using this buy down as a unique tool right now. You follow me? So every lender offers a buy down, but they usually don't advertise it because it's not a common thing. When rates are 2 and 3%, buyers are typically doing this. But remember, we're not offering to pay it for the buyer. We're offering to offer it to who? That's right. So it's a different way. So loan officers are well skilled in buy downs. And by the way, if you get a loan officer who goes, buy down, what's that? Change loan officers quickly. Yes. 6%. The question was, do seller concessions have caps? Typically, on most transactions, it's 6%. FHA is 6%. But if you're doing typically a conventional Fannie Freddie mortgage at less than 5% or lower, it's usually capped at 3%. So you always want to make sure that your concession availability in your transaction meets whatever mortgage product that buyer might be going with. So again, that's part of your LPDU conversation. Quite frankly, in the LP or DU report that gets published that you get evidence of, it will actually disclose exactly what the concession availability is on that particular file. Yeah.
Sorry, again.
No, sorry.
I might have missed this, but when you're talking to a buyer and you're discussing what price they want to come in at, and you might have spoke about this in the very beginning.
Go ahead.
I heard you mention ignore the purchase price.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about it specifically? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's condition, there's price per square foot, there's what similar homes sold, but
Yes.
how do you, and I know what I tell my clients, but what do you say?
Well,
Guys
what I
that
say
they feel
to,
comfortable
well,
with?
what I say to, I know in this market, and again, every market has its unique things, but all you need to do is look at closed sales. Go back in your MLS, it's good for something. Look and see where things were listed and go look and see where things are closing. You'll start to get some historical perspective on how far over list price things are settling. Do it yourself. After this meeting, go back over the last 6 months, see where properties were listed, see where they closed. That'll take you 35 seconds. And you're going to start to get a relationship between list and closed price. And when you look at it month over month, if you look at, I know around here, I just happen to be here in where we are in New Jersey, we know that the variance, which is the difference between list price and closed price, can be as much as 30 to 35%. I'm not saying every listing is 30 or 35%, but I know that the winners of these bids, were they the winners? Everyone who closed won. So if I go back to the buyer and say, listen, just so you know, in the last 60 days, people that are closing 18% above list price, they seem to be the winners. This is listed at 100,000. Let's go 18% above list. Let's do that.
But when you can actually look at areas and there was a house, 3,400 square feet, immaculate condition, beautiful location, 600,000.
Yes.
Then you have another home, 2,100 square feet.
Yeah.
Nothing special, 610,000,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So it's like.
Time,
value-
when, time.
Same.
Exact same time.
3 weeks apart.
But it's 4,000
So
square
my
foot different.
point is that.
That's extreme.
My point is that in sometimes like a block will suddenly command $100,000 more. And it's like.
So if-
How do you advise your clients? when-
Well, if you're telling me that you have knowledge, if you're telling me you have knowledge that a block is $100,000 more, that becomes part of your expectation conversation. If you know a particular development, let's say you have history of knowing, let's face it, you all should be inventory experts. Everybody on this call should be an inventory expert. If you know that there are blocks, there are areas, there are sections of the market that you are that are going $100,000 over list price,
Not overvalued,
over
whatever, yeah.
over list price, if they started out at 5 and they're going for 6, right? It's 100,000 over, that's 20%. The guidance I would have to a buyer is I want to create the expectation that the winning bidders in this particular community have won 20% over asking price. Talk to me about your ability to do that.
The question is, do you want to be a winner in this situation?
No, I want to be a loser. I always want to be a
That's
loser.
what I mean. I'm saying is like, the buyer has to make the decision
Of course.
that they're willing to.
Of course.
I'm gonna call it grossly overpay.
Hold on. That is
And I
not,
don't know what it's gonna bring.
grossly overpay is not your job.
But I'm
Let me
saying,
tell you something.
yeah.
Every buyer in April of 2020 overpaid. They all overpaid. And imagine the agent who wants to get a first-class ticket to the promised land said, I would not do this. You are grossly overpaying. I would never pay 40,000. Now, that same buyer who listened, they listened. They didn't overpay by 40,000 in April. How do you feel now?
Okay, 100,000.
They would pay 100. So I'm going to tell, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
A realtor is going way overboard in determining for other people what is overpay. That you're a big boy. Let me finish. You're a big boy.
I'm not waiting. I'm patient.
You're not patient. We have to recognize that buyers are big boys and big girls who we should allow them to make their own decision. What I say to a buyer is, if you feel this home meets your needs and meets your value expectation for what it is, this is your decision. I am not a guru. I am not a mind reader. I don't know if this market will collapse next month or will go up another 50%. Nobody does. I've got a friend works for Goldman Sachs. He's a bond analyst. He makes $5 million a year. He's my fraternity brother. Do you know what his opinion of interest rates are? I say to him, I go, Bill, what's happening with interest rates month? You know what he tells me? No idea. No idea. I go, well, how do you get paid? I'm paid to guess. I just sound really smart. Nobody knows. So the point is that if a buyer is willing to do it and they buy it for $800,000 and next month it's worth $200,000, don't feel guilty. That's not your fault. You're not blamed for that. They decided. And by the way, if they bought it for $600 and it goes to $900, that's not your fault either. You had nothing to do with it. I know all these realtors. Oh, I sold the listing top in the area. Did you do it? Maybe. How about people running for their lives out of Brooklyn? You think that had something to do with it? Of course it did.
What
So
language? Can you talk about specific
the language is, if somebody,
to buyers when they're.
I say to a buyer, the winners in this particular area, the winners of the bidding wars have been succeeding somewhere between 15 to 20% over asking price. If we are in a bidding war here, which we probably will be, I know there's a lot of action on the property. I just want to give you some guidance that if you want to kind of secure, or we don't know if we're going to win, if we want to win or want to at least put ourselves in the world winning, my recommendation would be, if you want to win, to consider an offer somewhere between 15 and 20% asking price. How do you feel about that? That's crazy. I don't want to do that. I got it. No worries. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm just telling you what historical data is. That's my job. My job as a realtor, I'm not going to get paid $30,000 to say this. What do you want to do? You want to do 850? Okay.
What about
We'll do our best.
comparing value to value?
Value is a matter of perspective. Value is an opinion. Appraisers' values are of opinion. I just got involved. It was a much lower price. We had an appraisal done of 300,000. I got this crazy phone call. It's worth more, it's worth more. They had another appraiser do it, came in at 345. The appraisal was done within 2 weeks. One appraiser appraised at 300, another one came in at 345. What's the value? I don't, really? I have no idea. All I know is the buyer is willing to, the buyer had an appraisal of 300,000. Begged, pleaded, I want it, got it for 345. Well, hold on a second. One can make the argument it's worth 300. They just did what needed to be done to get it to 345. Legally, ethically, I don't know what. But the point is, what's it worth? The only truthful answer is, if I hooked you up to a lie detector, the only truthful answer is, I have no idea. I know that one guy thought it was worth 3. One guy thought it was 345. What's it worth? You tell me. What's it worth?
What's worth whatever the buyer's willing to pay.
Ah, it's not whatever the realtor says. It's what the buyer's willing to do. So don't take ownership of your opinion of crazy, not crazy. That's way above our pay grade, above my pay grade. When a buyer's saying, listen, what do you think, Scott? Should I pay $950? You know what my answer is? What do you think? But what do you think, Scott? I don't know. What do you think? Scott, but what do you think? I don't know, but what do you think? I never, as soon as I say it, done. What do you think, Scott? What do you think? But Scott, you're the expert. I'm not the expert, you're gonna live there. It's not for me. Values change every day. The day you close, it'll change. The day, I don't know. You got to make that decision. You can buy for $950 or go back to your parents' house, go back to the basement, live there for the next 12 years with your 9 kids. Go do it. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe that's worth $80 a month.
The question is, why do some homes sell for $700 and others for $500?
Because there's
When
a,
they're very
because why do some people like vanilla ice cream and some people like chocolate? Because a buyer, maybe the buyer who paid $900, walked into the house, it met everything that they wanted, everything that they loved, everything that they need, the moment in their life, right? I was involved with a transaction around the corner from here. And I can't even say it because it's you would know all about it probably. This buyer paid, I think, double for the house. Went like 100,000 over the next offer, wanted to do anything to get it. And I'd say the basement, because these people were living in the basement with their parents. The wife was ready to kill the husband was ready to kill the wife. They both wanted to kill their parents. The kids were ready to go into mental institutions. They would have, to them, it was worth it. Who am I to say it's not worth it? And when we sat there with the buyer, and the buyer said to the realtor, and I was on the conference call, the buyer said to the realtor, the buyer said, they were on the phone, kids screaming in the background, screaming. I said, listen, I go, in all probability, you're probably 100,000. Will that guarantee? You think it'll guarantee? I said, I don't know. I go, it sounds good. And the listing agent thought it was a typo. They got the house. They couldn't be happier. They love it. They're like, ooh, we have a maid, but we have a life. They're thrilled. Who are we to say what they shouldn't do? And by the way, they were 100 over. They're probably 50% back to, they're almost there. The values of, I can't say. You'll know who it is.
The house, we were just looking at it, they asked 525.
They asked 525.
And in one day,
I could've
they got
$625.
625 before anyone saw it.
Nice.
Was the house price wrong?
Was it wrong?
No, was the listing price wrong?
No. No. Anytime the question was, a house was listed at 525, it went for 625. Was it listed wrong?
640.
I would tell you this. Hold on a second. Here's the big question. The reality behind,
Right, that's my question. But they have it listed at 599.
Because it's not reflected at all.
the question, list price, and again, I don't want to go too far off the radar here, but list price in our industry is nothing more than a strategic tooling price. List price doesn't reflect value. List price isn't reality. List price is really just a marketing tool to engage buyers to come see a property. And that's kind of how my view is of list price. Because the one thing about list price, even if you go back pre-pandemic, when something is listed at 525 and it sells for 500, was it priced wrong? You see, we are usually wrong on most realtors. When we tell a seller a list price, 99% of the time, it's not what it sells for, which means we do a pretty good job at what list price advice should be. So list price is really a tool. List price is really a marketing, merchandising tool that should be. Let me take a couple questions that are coming up on the chat. For the seller rate buy down mentioned, who pays that, the buyer or the lender? Typically on a seller rate buy down, either one can pay it. A buyer can pay a rate buy down. In fact, in other markets, not now, part of a seller concession part of the concession could go towards the points. So a seller can actually pay a buyer's rate buy down. Again, not necessarily in this market, but it's actually the case. And then there are some programs where there are lender funded buy downs. Now on lender funded buy downs, the rates usually start a little bit higher, but lenders don't pay their own buy down. Usually lenders give what they call lender credits, which you can use some of this excess money to pay some other closing costs, but typically the rate is higher for that. So again, not necessarily reflected in this particular marches. I have a question here from Hakan. It says, Scott, what are your thoughts regards to buyer rebates? Now, buyer rebates is again, one step south of a profanity word in the real estate business. Real estate agents, oh, rebates, rebates, rebates. First off, for many, many years, rebates were illegal in New Jersey. In fact, New Jersey was one of the last states in the country to make rebates legal. And what's a rebate? A rebate is if, let's say you're a buyer agent and you're getting a 3% commission, you actually say to the buyer, if I get a 3% commission, I'm going to give you 1%. That's a rebate. And it's a way in which agents, they use it as a way to get buyers, right? They use it as a way to get buyers. Now, rebates gets a bad rap in New Jersey because a lot of brokers don't want that, right? Because if they give away a rebate, it's coming out of their pocket too, right? So brokers, and it's gotten a very bad rap over the years. In fact, some companies, even though it's legal in New Jersey, some companies have a policy that yes, rebates are legal in New Jersey, but our company policy is we don't give rebates. Here's my view of rebates. If something is legal, let's figure out a way to use it to a way that might be able to secure other business. So while I am built for always earning more, my reputation in this business is getting 6% commissions when the next closest competitor can charge 4% if they're lucky. I'm not into doing things for less. That's not my DNA. However, rebates can serve as a tool in certain situations based upon the way things are legally allowable to go. So I can tell you in certain higher price points, rebates are not all that unusual, right? Because, hey, if you're selling a $4 or $5 million house and there's a 50, 60, I mean, that's a pretty good incentive for people to maybe want to use you in that. And let's face it, it takes the same work to sell a $5 million house as it does a 50. So rebates, I think, in my view, are not a bad thing. I don't have a bad view of them. If you abuse them and you say, hey, listen, work with me. If I get a 3% commission, I'll give you back 2.75. I'm not about that, but I do think in certain situations, if you market it correctly, it can be used as an advantage. So that's my view on rebates. I don't have a negative view of them. I think that they're okay. Yes.
Should you include that if you want them to sign on the dotted line for your?
You could make a rebate part of your exclusive buyer agency agreement. However, I never like to attach my value to a discount. I don't like that. I don't like to say I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. However, I'm cutting my price. Like Ritz-Carlton doesn't say we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, we're the best. We'll sell you a room for $99. It's just when you are the best, usually, hold on. Usually, put that in the back of the corner, please. Talking to me. Usually, when real estate agents, when salespeople have nothing else to give, when you have nothing unique to sell, nothing unique to give, all you got left is the money. And I can, sometimes like everybody probably knows agents in their market. They're like the best agent, but they always take discount commissions. Why would the best agent have to discount? Should the best agent have to charge a premium? It doesn't make sense. And so when you find the best of the best discounting, you got to smell blood. That means that they're hurting. They don't got anything else to bring to the table. I'm the greatest. I'm the great. But you know what? I'll take it for 1%, 2%. Like you should be the opposite. So developing this value added skill, it's a mindset. If you think you're worth less, guess what? You are. How is a buyer rebate reflected on the closing sheet? Full disclosure, it's right on the disclosure sheet. So buyer rebates are on the contract, they're on the closing disclosure, they're right on there. In fact, if you do it early enough, it's right on the LE, which is the loan, the loan estimate, so they would be on both. Shown as a credit to the buyer. Well, either way, it's either a credit or a direct payment to the buyer. Again, lenders, they look at it, again, it's not a reimbursement from the seller, even though it's coming theoretically from the seller resources, it's coming from the realtor. So in the lending community, the lenders don't consider that to be buyers getting money from the seller. It's coming from the realtor to the buyer. So that's enough protection for the seller not to deem it as a kickback or cash back to the buyer in an illegal way. The broker is actually only one that can offer the rebate. The broker is actually, yes, Han is correct. And he made a very important point. A rebate cannot come from you directly. It always has to come from the broker. Brokers, so you have to, whatever, if you're going to go into the rebate world, you must have clarity and direction and transparency with your broker to do so. So you as an agent are not allowed to write checks to consumers. They all have to come from the broker directly. So thank you, Hakan, for addressing that. Hakan, do we do this? And if so, is there a form? We can discuss it later if better. Nicole, that's probably a question that you may want to address to Hakan and your office if you do rebates, or how to do them and how to effectuate them. Yes.
I wanted to comment, you spoke about a decent occupancy for,
Yes.
when a seller has to stay in the house. So I actually recently closed a transaction just this past Friday that the buyer came and said, listen, I cannot take the house because in the mortgage papers that I signed, we were deep on contract.
Yes.
Mortgage papers that I signed said that the seller will vacate after 60 days.
Gotcha. So the question is that she's talking about a situation where she had a transaction, and in the mortgage papers that the buyer signed, it said explicitly that the seller must vacate the property after 60 days. Go ahead.
So she says, well, and we know it's not going to sell the longer than 60
Yes.
days. So what are we going to do? So we made an addendum. This is the idea we came up with.
They came up with an addendum. I'm just repeating to the audience here.
The seller must vacate within 60 days.
Vacate within 60
And
days.
During those 60 days, there's free rent. Like they can stay free of charge for those 60 days.
Okay.
However, after that, they will be penalized a penalty of $100 a day for staying.
So the
okay?
sellers will be
Now-
penalized $100 a day if they stay.
Then we took out a calculator and we did some math.
Right.
Okay, we were originally gonna charge the seller about $2,300 a month.
Okay.
rent,
Right.
Okay, instead, they're getting 2 months free rent. Now, they're saying that they think they need to stay about 6 months.
6 months they need to stay. Okay.
So we did the math. If you do $100 a day,
Right.
for 4 months, that's about 12,000.
But let me just get to the point. How does the mortgage company get
Oh,
satisfied?
Because what happens is, let's say the mortgage company knocks on the door
Yes.
and says, Mr. Smith, you're in the house.
Yes.
It's supposed to be the client's house.
Yes.
The Smith's house. So then the clients say, well, they're kicked out. They're kicked out. They're not letting us in. We can't get them out. They're paying $100 a day penalty to be there.
So
Put everything in our
right.
power to get
All
them
right.
out.
So basically they're coming up with a situation. I don't know. That's an observational thing. I can't really comment on it. I could.
That was the
Okay.
idea that if the mortgage company were to lock
So let me ask, does anybody else have any questions that I can answer for them? Anybody here online? Yes.
Okay, this is like a question.
Go ahead.
I have an attorney who is a bully.
We have an attorney who's a bully.
And the question is, do you stay quiet or do you stick up for yourself? And speak back.
Okay, so the question was, is there's an attorney who's a bully. Do you stick up for yourself or allow yourself to be bullied? So what we need to do is we need to transition from a training session to a therapy session immediately here. This is now therapy. Yes, you need to stand up for yourself. Do not let an attorney bully you. You need to stand up for yourself 100%. All right. Well, listen, I've kept you guys, I think, longer than my hope was. You had fun. Did you guys enjoy yourself? Those that are on camera, wave your hands to know if you enjoyed yourself. Okay. I'm happy for that. We hope.
My best comment was.
Hold on.
the Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch. There we go. So anyway, I want to thank all of you for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. There is a recording of this. Hakan, thank you to HomeSmart for putting this together. This is really good. The company prides itself on providing great training. We hope we fulfilled that for you today. And I look forward to hearing any of your stories. Never hesitate to reach out with any questions. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Can I talk to you?
Of course.
Thanks a million.
Another one. Can you just say, I want to talk to you?
I want to talk to you.